Hey guys, welcome back to the Brik House. Brik and Hobbs here with week 4 of the Pokemon Unite Celestial Rumble tier list. Recently we got part 2 that dropped, as well as the new release of Mega Lucario, which we will have to place on our tier list. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. So the first Pokemon on the patch notes that we're going to be going through is Absol. So Absol, having its Pursuit and Midnight Slash nerfed, its damage percentages were fairly high in that early game, and chasing down a lot of these attackers, especially under that tier 1 goal zone, was almost a guaranteed KO. So honestly very nice to see that they are nerfing its early game percentages the way they are. However, it does drop Absol down our tier list just a little bit. We will put him just at the top of the not bad tier right now. He definitely was doing so well because of that early game spike, and nerfing it does definitely hurt him a lot. So the next Pokemon we have to go through is Aegislash. So Aegislash, only having its Wide Guard nerfed, just a small cooldown and throw duration nerf, nothing too substantial on Aegislash, and not anything to really make him move up or down in our tier list. He is definitely still one of those better picks you can pull off. A really good all-rounder who's tanky enough to go in that top lane or even into that jungle lane. So we'll just be keeping him where he is for right now. So the next Pokemon we're going to go through is Ceruledge. Now Ceruledge, having its Psycho Cut Plus, and Revenant Rend all nerfed. It was definitely a Pokemon that was doing a lot of damage during that Groudon fight, and especially with those recent Bitter Blade buffs, the damage ratios that Ceruledge had were very surprising for a lot of people who wanted to initiate on this Pokemon. You could easily 1v3 or 1v4 a team if you had your Unite move up, and Psycho Cut was just doing so much damage in that mid to late game. So it is going to bring Ceruledge down a bit on our tier list. We'll be putting him just under Aegislash for right now. He still is one of those squishier all-rounders compared to the more meta-heavy, tanky all-rounders that still do a lot of damage. And Easy still a very solid pick to snowball the game in that early to mid game. So the next Pokemon we have is Cinderace. Cinderace, having its Pyro Ball and Pyro Ball Plus both buffed. So Cinderace is sitting in the middle of our not bad tier. A relatively conservative placement for Cinderace. There is a lot of damage on this Pokemon, and it's still a very good option if you're able to get to that 3rd stage evolution early on in the game. So already being a decent Pokemon, having its Pyro Ball being buffed by just even the slightest amount definitely is enough to put Cinderace a little bit higher up in our not bad tier. It is on the cusp of being one of those solid picks, although it just being a 3-stage evolution and the meta being so focused on all-rounders makes it kind of a hard pick to play consistently and get those games won. So the next Pokemon that was on the patch notes was Comfey. Comfey, having its Triage, Sweet Kiss, and Grass Knot all being nerfed pretty substantially as well. Comfey being one of the most, if not the most banned Pokemon this last week, pairing so well with picks like Empoleon or Zoroark. Although we'll just be heading to the top of the not bad. For the most part, the supports that are inhabiting our not bad category are the more niche supports, where playing with a duo or a trio partner is a lot more recommended than if you had to go into a game just by yourself, as if you're playing Comfey with a complete stranger, it can get very confusing very quickly, and you'd find yourself wanting to decouple from them. So the next Pokemon that had been on the patch notes is Dragapult. And Dragapult, having its Dragon Breath and Dragon Breath Plus being buffed, also just a small bug fix on its Jeep and Destroy, where it could actually target Raichu's Electro Ball, funny enough. To be honest, I really don't see these Dragapult buffs as doing anything for the Pokemon. Shadow Ball is still going to be its best set, in my opinion, for when you gotta be running this Pokemon. Just the gap closing effect that Shadow Ball has that Dragon Breath lacks is enough for me to always run Shadow Ball, despite the damage that Dragon Breath can do. So we're going to keep Dragapult still in the same position, still doing fairly well in the current meta, being one of the more assassin-heavy attackers, as opposed to your traditional attackers, which aren't doing so well right now. Still just a very solid pick if you're looking for an attacker to play this week. So the next Pokemon we have is Lucario. Lucario having its power-up punch and close combat being buffed. The extreme speed set on Lucario had been used quite a lot, although these recent buffs to the power-up punch set have actually made it a lot more viable and really highlight the true potential damage that Lucario is capable of. Lucario definitely in a fairly good spot. I think these buffs are enough to just put him slightly above Dragonite right now. So the next Pokemon we're going to go over is Mew. Mew having its auto attacks, Solar Beam, and Surf all being buffed. Mew is a Pokemon that I always hope could do a little bit more damage. Pokemon Unite seem to have neglected this Pokemon for over a year, but recently have been showing Mew a little bit more love, and these latest patches have definitely made Mew a much more viable option. I'm feeling fairly comfortable of putting Mew in the bottom of our not bad tier for right now. It's able to do a lot of damage and really feel like it's doing enough in that late game where it doesn't just kind of fall off a cliff like how it used to. And even pairing you with another damage dealing attacker or all-rounder is definitely enough to get you over the edge on getting those KOs and securing that game. So the next Pokemon we're going to go through is Pawmot. So Pawmot had huge changes to its entire kit, some of the biggest I've ever seen. So we saw its lifesteal getting nerfed for every level, the Thunder Punch Plus getting nerfed, its Supercell Slam and Supercell Slam being buffed, Volt Switch being buffed, and as well as its Unite move, Full Charge Spark being buffed. We were also seeing it gain some effects such as the Unstoppable from when using its Unite move, which is giving it a lot more versatility. The damage that you can obtain from Volt Switch has shown to be very devastating to any attacker that stands a little close to Pawmot currently. So one of the hugest glow-ups I've seen recently given in a single patch to a Pokemon, and Pawmot already being a decently strong Pokemon, now becoming one of, if not the most oppressive all-rounder. I think we're going to be putting Pawmot, feeling very comfortable on putting him just behind Empoleon in the solid pick tier. Empoleon right now being by far the strongest all-rounder in the game right now, will most likely be at the top of our must-play for the next week. However, again, we're just going over the patch note Pokemon for this one. But Pawmot being a very, very strong pick right now, and one that rivals even Blaziken on the amount of damage you can pull off on an entire team. So the next Pokemon we have in the patch notes is Umbreon, with its Foul Play being nerfed. Umbreon already being a very, very strong defender pick, possibly one of the strongest in the games. It's a very tight race between Crustle and Umbreon right now. Umbreon being a defender with a lot of support-like capabilities definitely gives it a slight leg up over Crustle, and I don't really see these nerfs really changing that much of Umbreon's playstyle, which is just so oppressive in this current meta. So the last Pokemon we have on the patch notes is Zoroark. Zoroark having its Cut and Cut Plus being buffed, Night Slash being buffed, and its Shadow Claw and Shadow Claw Plus being nerfed. And one important change that happened on Zoroark is the fact that it cannot be able to get its dash combos off as quickly as it used to. There's a little bit more delay in between those strikes, and it's something that definitely is affecting the win rate for Zoroark. A Pokemon that definitely relies on just dominating in that early game and kind of snowballing the whole rest of the game. Although these slight changes on its early game definitely don't put it into the best position, and I think we're going to be putting Zoroark just at the top of the not bad tier, and we're just actually going to be swapping it with Darkrai for this week. Darkrai being a very good Pokemon that we will again delve a little bit more into for the next week's tier list when we go over just general win rates and lose rates for the Pokemon of the week. Although Darkrai definitely being a Pokemon that I would say to keep your eye on. But going back to Zoroark, definitely is still a very good pick, but just going to land up in the middle of our not bad tier for this week. So that's going to do it for the patch note changes that happened recently. Not too much changes from the Pokemon as we usually see from these patch notes. biggest shifts we're seeing really from the Zoroark going down from the solid pick to the not bad pick, or Pawmot just moving all the way up to the solid pick. And honestly, you can probably even make an argument that it could be the must play for the week. So we also have the new release this week, Mega Lucario. Mega Lucario acts very similar to Lucario. It does have only one moveset that you are able to go with this Pokemon, and it definitely has an insane amount of damage, especially when you get to that level 9 spike. It's not the tankiest Pokemon in the game, much like Lucario, although a very high risk, high reward all-rounder. Mega Lucario, much like a lot of these previous Pokemon Unite releases that we've been seeing, has come out in a fairly strong state, having very high damage ratios compared to a lot of the other Pokemon currently in the game that I can fully expect to be tuned down in a coming week or so, as well as just some bug fixes with its kit. But currently we will be putting him at the solid pick tier. I think we'll put him just slightly above Lucario. He's not too much different than him in that regards, more so as a higher damage dealing Lucario in a sense. But we'll definitely see in these coming weeks how this Pokemon performs against the rest of the cast. So far though, definitely to a strong start. So that's going to be it for this week's tier list with the newest edition of Mega Lucario. If you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've been Brik and Hobbs, and until next time guys, stay nasty.